So I just want to say thank you for everybody showing up for Creative Real Estate University. So Cindy's been hounding me to go out and say, get the best in the industry. Who's out there for finding deals? Who's lead generators? And so I started calling some people. And the number one person on my list that I'm super excited to bring to all of you is Matt Beard. Matt has quite an interesting story. He's here in person live, if you will. And Matt, tell us a little about your journey into real estate. How did you get started? From that kid sitting in high school class going, man, I want to go buy real estate, right? Is that how it was?
Never ever. Real estate was not on my journey at all. Now I will say back when I was 18, like dating myself a little bit, I'm 32. So back in high school, I actually went and took photos for the banks when everything was going to foreclosure. That was my job in high school. My mom was a broker in real estate, and like they called broker price opinions, and they would pay like 35 to 50 bucks every time you go out and take photos of these houses because the banks are about to repossess them. And I was like, this is great. Let's go be in my car. I go take pictures of these houses. Now, sometimes you get ran off the property and there's some sketchy situations, but for the most part, when you're 18, you're bulletproof. So I would go out, you take a side photo, a front photo, the other side photo, a couple street shots, and you go back, you input it into the system, and you made 50 bucks. And I was doing, gosh, I don't know, probably like 60, 70 of those a month. So like in high school, I was making like 4 or 5 grand a month doing BPOs. Like, this is crazy, So like, that's how I kind of got into real estate, but like, it wasn't something I was going to ever feel like I was going to get into sales. I moved out from South Carolina to Arizona, and I worked at the gym for a while. That's where I met my wife, and I was going to school and stuff. But like, I don't know, just like I feel like most of us here is like no one's ever going to pay you what you're worth, Like there's no scenario where somebody's going to pay you hourly and be like, "Yeah, this is great." Like when you know that there's an earning potential based on like commission and getting out there and say, "Hey, I'm going to eat what I kill and I'm going to go make it happen." And I always had an itch. I was like, there's only so much I could do for personal training sessions, and there's only so much I could do like getting paid hourly. So I wanted to get into the life of like, I want to sell something that people have to pay good money for, and I get compensated fairly for it, So dabbling in that world, Cody, I don't know if you guys know Cody Barton or not, but he was a friend of mine when I moved out to Arizona. And of course, he linked up with Pace early on. This was like 2018. And, he started doing this wholesaling thing. And at this point, I had transitioned into becoming like a real estate agent because I thought that's what I needed to do real estate deals. Thought I needed a license, right? It makes sense. But I realized quickly that other than hitting up all my family members and friends, being like, let me sell your house, and then getting really mad when the friend doesn't use me as their agent, I was like, there's got to be something else to do, So I saw Cody, and because we had been friends for a little bit by that point, he transitioned out of this MLM company. They were like selling energy drinks or something. And all of a sudden I see that he got like a Maserati and he's doing wholesaling. I'm like, what is this? I saw some videos online, and there's always somebody in like a fancy suit, and it looks like a scam. They're on the beach in Malibu or something, being like, I flipped all these houses and I didn't use any of my own money. So I saw the ads, but all of a sudden I saw Cody with a Maserati, and I'm like, okay, something's not adding up. I know him. I feel like I can do that too, right? So I quickly linked up with him to see what they were up to. And within, I don't know, 3, 4 months, me, Pace, and Cody became business partners, and we had a real estate business together. He had transitioned out of We Buy Ugly Houses. He had like a home investor franchise at the time, and he sold that to go full time into wholesaling. So, rest was history from that point, but, it was a long time coming. And it was one of those things that where I remember way back when they used to do this thing before like Sunday service and all the other stuff. They used to do these conference calls where it was like, let me tell you about our flips and stuff we have going on. And I remember sitting in our bedroom, and they were like, yeah, we're going to make 60 grand on this flip. And my wife's looking at me being like, you need to do that. You need to do that. I'm trying. I'm going to try, because like I didn't have any money coming into this. So like for me, wholesaling was a way to really start making good money. I've seen people do it. And for me, like proof of concept was seeing Cody do it, to be honest with you. And I was like, I can do this too. I just didn't have a lot of money to get started. So I went out and started door knocking, talking to people in foreclosure, got really good at that. So that's my origin story there, Shane.
That's an awesome story. It's inspiring. Because
Yep.
so many of us start out that way, right? We don't know where to start. We don't have the money to go on big, but we see somebody that's doing it. How do you do it? How
Yeah.
are you doing it?
Yeah.
What's your secrets? You know,
Well, now leading up to this, I watched
What's-
all the podcast. I watched every single episode of Real Estate Disruptors, but none of it got me closer to doing a deal, because I felt like there was always like something that I was missing. Like somebody's not sharing something. Like, what's the secret here? Right? Okay, you're doing this. Okay, that's different than this other person's strategy. And that's the beauty of real estate, but it's also the curse. It's the fact that you can make money in a million different ways. So then it feels like there's so many different opportunities. So then it's figuring out what makes the most sense for you, right? Like how to get started. So that's the reason why I treat wholesaling as a way of like, this was my entry point and I will always wholesale. There'll never be a time where I don't wholesale. It makes zero sense not to wholesale because it's too good on the active income. So I hear people all the time say, eventually I'm gonna graduate out of wholesaling. Graduate out of making $50,000 a month? Graduate out of making $100,000? What world would that? I mean, I get it long term because some people think like, oh, the next level is fix and flipping. No, right? Not in my opinion. So, I'm all about building a deal finding business, and that's what I kind of want to talk about today. If you guys are cool with that.
Absolutely. And I love that concept because that is the problem with this adventure that we're on is that there's so many different ways to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I always think that the way that person's doing it over there is the better way.
Mm-hmm.
What do they have going on over there? We got to try that.
Right.
You just got to find out what drives you, find your niche,
Mm-hmm.
and go all in on it. And, whether that's wholesaling, whether it's fixing flipping, whether it's finding money, and that's what drives Cindy, I know. There are a million ways. Try to focus for a while on one of them.
Right.
Rule it out. You're in or you're out.
It's all about focus. It is finding your one thing. For me, I treat my deal finding business as everything, right? So we're buying a motel in Florida right now that we've been working on that came from my wholesale business. I bought $30 million in real estate last year from my wholesale business. I still pay myself on my deals that I buy. I pay myself an assignment fee because I've got people to feed. I got VAs and all the other stuff, right? But like it all comes from keeping one singular focus. It was crazy because just yesterday I was using the system the same way that we go about finding these deals. I'm gonna share with you guys. I was sitting in a guy's living room. It was a foreclosure, and he is a quote unquote serial entrepreneur, right? He's showing me all these little things he's got going on. He's like, we're gonna be selling. We have like some sort of pharmacy thing we're starting, and then he's like, we do windows and doors, and then I had this other company that does like ADUs and casitas, and he had like 7 businesses, but yet he couldn't pay his mortgage, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well that's a clear indication to me of an undisciplined entrepreneur, right? Trying to do 4, 5, 6 different things at once will get nowhere. So, in my opinion, a big part of this is just finding that one thing and sticking to it to the point where, because sometimes we just get bored. We start making some money and then we get bored and like, what else can we do? Like, this is interesting. I was talking to a student this morning and they're killing it in Atlanta. They're doing a ton of deals. And they're like, well, Matt, where else should we go? I'm like, do you think you've done all the deals in Atlanta? Do you think there may be more deals to do in Atlanta? Maybe, right? So I feel like we should probably just stay there because you already have such a good base. Like you could probably do $1 million a month in Atlanta. Like, might as well, it's not another market. That's not the answer. Because eventually we get to the point where we've solved the easy problems and the next big problem in front of us seems like, okay, this is going to take months to fix. So this may take a year to fix, but is it worth it? So again, a big part of what we do is all about creating a deal finding business. And this is kind of like how I teach it, at least, is the first step between finding and creating this business. All we're trying to do is get to the point where we can do at least 2 deals per month consistently, right? Because what this is, on average, your assignment fees are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 grand, right? Half the time they're more than that, half the time it's less. So just on the conservative side, you should be getting to the point where, and this is without having to go spend a bunch of money. This is about hiring a bunch of people. You don't even have to get VAs or anything like that. Like this, it's so realistic right now for one person with some simple systems in place to do 2 deals a month, right? Now that's $20,000 to $30,000, right? So what I do is, of course, in order for me to get 2 deals a month with the system that we use, it takes me I have to look at about 100 properties to make that happen. Well, what happens to the other 98, right? What happens to the other ones that don't kind of fit into my wholesale bucket? Well, again, I'm treating this as my deal finding business. So in there somewhere is definitely going to be, if I do this right, then about every 3 months or so, I look to buy at least one of these deals, right? And buy one deal. And ideally, like the bonus here for all of you guys, like y'all are in creative university, you know this game. It's like ideally you're not using your own money. But if you're making $20,000, $30,000 a month, you're going to be due for quite a bit in taxes by the end of the year. So we need to buy real estate just to kind of offset some of this. So if we're buying a deal about every 3 months from what we're finding, that means one in every roughly 5 or 6 deals you guys are going to be able to buy. This is active income. Like in my opinion, like with all the properties I bought last year, none of that's going to retire me right now. In fact, it feels like watching paint dry. It's kind of miserable. But I know in 10, 15 years, I'll be super stoked that I did all this, But in the meantime, like I also want a lifestyle, right? I want to be able to go do things. I got 2 little boys and I got a wife, and grandma lives with us too in the casita, So like we got stuff we got to take care of, and I want to be able to go places and like Disneyland and whatever, right? So I want to be able to make good money now and not be like, hey, in 10 years, we're going to have a lot of money. So I'm a big part about creating active income, and that's what the business really does, right? Two deals a month or so should bring you about 20, 30 grand. And then about every 3 months, you buy one deal, because that will help you basically have little to no tax burden if you're able to do, obviously, cost segregation with bonus depreciation for the year that you buy your house. So that's the nuts and bolts of like creating a deal finding business. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is basically 4 things, right? Number 1, the easiest way to find a deal. Number 2, the easiest way to reach out. Like, what do these conversations actually sound like, right? Number 3, the easiest way to structure these deals. And number 4, the easiest way to sell a deal, okay? Because a lot has changed since interest rates started to go up in the summer of 2022. And summer in general in the real estate market is not the best. Houses sit a little bit longer. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, are we due for another decline? Is there a bubble about to pop? Like every summer, right? So unless they drop interest rates, this is just the way it's going to be. So I'll tell you guys right now, when we buy properties with cash, we have to be pretty stinking low. So I'm going to share with you guys kind of my process of finding these deals, and that's where I'll start, right? So let's just say best place to find a deal. All right. So this is what that looks like. I use a tool called Batch Leads. This is where I go to find all my opportunities. So where a lot of people get bogged down in their wholesale business is the top, right? Any sort of business, anything, right? A lending business, raising capital, buying multifamily, single family, creating a laundromat. It doesn't matter. Everything is always downstream from lead generation. Like we need people coming in at the top of the funnel. So in real estate wholesaling, one of the biggest places people get stuck is you see the shiny objects, right? You see like, oh, somebody flashed a check and they did a $40,000 deal with a probate, right? Or someone just did a foreclosure deal and oh my gosh, they're gonna make $100 grand on a foreclosure. This is crazy, right? So then we're always bouncing around from different lead gen sources, and we're all over the place. So again, going back to the theme I feel like for today that Shane shared is focus, right? So what I do is we don't pay to skip trace anymore. At one point in time when we had like our wholesaling business with Pace and everybody, we had like 40 virtual assistants, and they were calling homeowners all across the country, probates, foreclosures, all these things. The overhead was massive. Pace didn't care because, he's just going off and doing his thing. He's always happy, willy-nilly, just excited all the time. I'm over here dry heaving in a bag being like, oh my God, we got a lot of money to cover. We got some deals we got to close, right? So I was like, look, it's tough. It's tough. And I'm like, all right, so there's got to be a better way to do deals without spending a bunch of money. So that's what kind of led us to, with the interest rates in conjunction with this, we stopped calling homeowners completely. We stopped PPC. We stopped all the things. And this is the only thing we do. I would say 99% of the deals we do in our business is just like what I'm going to show you guys. Okay. Every now and then when a student asks like, hey, like, can you show me how to do foreclosures? And some people I teach want a door knock because they know that's kind of how I got started. And there's big deals to be had there. But what I care about the most is consistency, right? I like the big deals, the big rips that you could get in this business, but I'm more concerned. I like singles and doubles. If I can consistently get to the point, like just today, we got 2 new contracts. They're probably going to be in the neighborhood of 12 to 20 grand assignment, right? And we'll take that all day. Right? We'll just keep taking our singles and doubles because it's consistent and I can count on it. Every now and then you'll get a big deal that comes through, But this is how you can stay super consistent. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to use Tampa for an example. It doesn't matter where you guys do this. I will say my favorite markets across the country to do real estate wholesaling in is going to be Tampa, Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. Like those are probably your top markets. Now, Houston's a good market too. I would probably stay out of Austin. San Antonio, down to San Antonio is pretty solid as well. Now, I say that just because it's an in-migration market, means people are moving there, and the prices have historically just they've gone up higher than the national average. Now, what we are seeing right now, something that you guys should definitely take note of, a little off subject, but inventory is at an all-time high in the Southeast right now. It hasn't been this high since 2006. Properties are sitting. There's a lot of development happening, so property values are probably going to start coming down a little bit. All from, you're looking at from Virginia down to, Louisiana to Texas. Like they have the most inventory they've had in a long time. But as it is right now, prices are still staying steady. So this is where I'd prefer to do wholesale deals. So here, for example, in batch leads, what I did was I drew a shape, right? And it tells me, all right, Matt, well, roughly we have data on about 1.4 million people here, right? In the shape that you drew. But like I said, I don't want to skip trace or have to play the game of calling homeowners and try my best to find someone who wants to sell their property at a discount, mostly get cussed out most of the time. That's how you quit real estate, right? That's how you get out of this business really quick. So what we do instead is I focus on calling realtors. Realtors are our deal suppliers. They bring us everything. And there's a few reasons behind doing this, but let me show you what I'll look for first. So if I'm looking for realtors that I want to contact, the first thing that I'm going to do is I primarily wholesale single family homes, right? That's like my main thing. So if I select all, unselect all, and go down to single family, cool. Now, after I say, hey, I want to try to find homes, like single family homes in this shape in the greater Tampa area, I also want to work with active agents. I don't want to call every realtor in this market. I could, but I could be doing that forever. And I'm going to deal with a lot of people who aren't in the business anymore. They dabbled and maybe they sold their mom's home or their personal home or something. But you guys know, like, there's a lot of people who treat real estate as a hobby, right? They got their license and they're just like testing the waters. And it makes no sense for me to try to call those people because like the likelihood of me doing a deal with them is next to none, right? So I want to try to find agents in Tampa that have active listings or pending listings. That just kind of helps me narrow down the list a little bit and say these people are doing deals, right? The next thing that I do is I go over here to the minimum list price and the maximum list price, okay? So I say, okay, well, I really don't want to build relationships with agents that take luxury listings because as a wholesaler, fix and flipper, I'm probably not going to do anything on the luxury properties, right? And even if you're going to be buying those for assets, they're still kind of tricky to do, right? Especially if you're going to be doing like Airbnb or something. It just doesn't make sense. Most of the business is going to be at or median price point. So an easy thing you guys can do to check is you can go to ZHVI, which stands for Zillow Home Value Index, and then you can type in the city. So it looks like Tampa right now, the median home price in Tampa, according to Zillow, is $385, right? Tampa as a whole, right? I'm sure if I type in some of these submarkets like Clearwater and St. Petersburg, it's probably going to be a little bit more because of the location. So with my shape, I'm going to say probably 425 to 450 is maximum. I probably don't want to be working with agents that are taking listings probably anything higher than that. Just gives me a likelihood they're taking listings in my ideal price point that I know I can move deals in, right? So I'm gonna go list price here and I'm gonna call it 425, right? So that narrows my list down to 5,500 people, okay? Now from here, I'll say, look, I really just wanna work with agents that are representing individuals, right? They're not representing big LLCs. I remove all the hedge funds and OfferPad, Open Door, et cetera, et cetera. So that takes me down to about 3,700, right? And that's a really good list. 3,700 people that I can prospect and start having conversations with. And these are my ideal, basically deal suppliers, right? These 3,700 people are doing deals at my ideal price point. I want them to get to know me. And the benefit behind this is a few things, right? So let me just see. I'll see my 3,700 so I can show you guys what this looks like. The benefit is a few things, right? So like this property here off Lighthouse in Palm Harbor. Well, number one, the agent involved typically puts the phone number that they like to get contacted to on the listing itself, right? So I know that if I'm trying to reach out to them, I don't have to worry about, do I have the right phone number? Do I have the wrong phone number? I know that I have the number that they asked to be reached out to. So it's also compliant, right? So I don't have to skip trace and it's compliant. So if I text them or call them, I don't have to worry about the carriers flagging me and being like, because that's a big gray area when it comes to wholesaling, especially homeowners. People are like, I'm on the do not call list. Agents cannot say that. They put their phone number on a marketing piece. So makes your life a lot easier and your connection rate goes through the roof, right? And the other piece behind this is 95+% of the time, when someone wants to sell their house, they typically get an agent. 95+% of the time. So if 95% of the deals in my market are happening with a group of people, and some people are like totally against, like, I don't want to work with realtors. That's not possible. Okay, well, 95% of the deals are held with them. So why not tap into that part of the market, right? Because you could still work with agents and do off-market deals. Because I don't care about Lighthouse Drive, right? I don't care about these other properties that's on this list. The only thing I care about is the listing agent that's involved, right? I care about the person that's on this listing. So like, let's see North Bay here. If I go to MLS, let's see, right? Yamin Gonzalez. That's who I want to talk to, right? I don't care about this property that's pending at North Bay Street. It just gives me something to talk to them about, right? But this is how we find our ideal deal partners. Does that make sense, everybody? Everybody get that part of it?
Absolutely. So you're
Sweet.
really not calling about this deal per se.
Nope.
You're just trying to build that.
Exactly. So I have a script. I have a script that I'll share with you guys.
They'll call you for the next 100 deals.
For sure. I mean, look, at the end of the day, agents probably have a ton of investors in their back pocket. It's all about connection. I never get salty if they sell the deal to somebody else, but I try to stay in touch with them because it's all about relationship building. Because the best part about this whole thing is what happens on the back end, right? If I can do one deal with this person and I keep my promises and I do what I say I'm going to do, then the likelihood of them bringing me another deal is pretty good, right? So if I have an agent in my market that I'm able to do stuff with and I just do it once, well, maybe I can do 3 or 4 deals with them in a year, right? Maybe 5. Those are all free deals. So if I make 10 grand on the assignment, it costs me nothing to make 10 grand, right? So that is the real benefit here of the back end of why the system works really well. It's like building a referral bucket, right? And we all know referrals are just so much better. Like, I don't have to worry about if this agent brings me another deal, I don't have to sell the seller on why they need to work with me. Like, if the agent's backing me and says, hey, you should really take their 325 offer, that makes that deal so much easier to put together. Okay. So I have a script and I'll kind of talk to you guys about like how we actually do the outreach and all that good stuff. But the script itself is pretty straightforward. All right. So now we're going to talk about the easiest way to reach out, right? The second thing that I was going to share with you guys. So how this works, right? The real benefit of this, again, is I'm not calling specifically on North Bay. But what I can do is when we talk about building a wholesale business, the way that you have the biggest competitive advantage is to be able to have more options, right? If you have more options than your competitor, you're probably going to be able to convert better, right? Where it may take a competitor 80 properties to get a deal or maybe even more, how you can convert in 30 or 40 is because you can provide different options. We can wholesale cash deals and creative deals, the same, right? So when we reach out to these agents, this is typically what it sounds like. And I got a script for you guys. I'll share it with Shane and Cindy whenever we hop off so you can have this. But basically what it sounds like is, hey, John, this is Matt. How you doing? And he'll be like, Matt, I'm great. How can I help you? Hey, I'm just circling back. Gosh, I think I reached out about a month ago. We haven't had a chance to connect, but I was just looking for some properties that needed some work. I didn't know if you had anything coming up, right? And he'll be like, yes, I have something coming up. Most of the time, they're going to say, no, I don't have anything coming up that needs any work. I can easily pivot that conversation, say, oh, no worries. Well, look, how often do you run across properties that need some work? Is that maybe a couple times a year, 3, 4 times? I had an agent yesterday tell me, oh, I've already done 8 of these since March. I'm like, wonderful. I told her, I was like, we need to stay in touch. This is with the Dallas agent, right? And she literally sent me 2 properties that same day, one of which, like, we're still negotiating. We'll see how it goes. But it was just that. I said, how often do you run across these? And she goes, all the time, right? But most of the time, you have people being like, like 3 or 4 times a year. So then in the script, I pivot and say, well, look, I also buy pretty properties. I don't just buy the ugly ones. I know you got a lot of people always hitting you up trying to buy the properties that need work. And look, you don't know me from Adam, but I try to put a voice to the name. I try to sound a little different, and we do things a little different too. We can buy properties that are on market. We can pay retail for those. They just have to be on creative terms. Do you think you have any clients that may be open to doing something like that? Oftentimes it works best whenever clients are kind of stuck on their number, right? And then they'll say yes or no. A lot of times no. And then in the script, you'll see I pivot to telling a story. Well, look, interesting enough, I was working with an agent. Her name was Yaman, and they had a property off of North Bay. We're able to figure something out because they were listed at 375, and they were kind of to the point where they had a loan for 336 against the property, and it wasn't selling for 375. They were faced with, do we come down on price? Do we keep price dropping to try to get this property sold? They had already moved on, but they needed to get a certain amount of money to walk away with. In their case, it was like 10 grand. We were able to figure out a situation where we can get them to 10 grand. We stepped in their shoes and took over the mortgage, and we made something happen. Do you ever run across anything like that? Told my story. They'll say yes or no. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. I'll definitely keep you in mind. And I'll say, then at the last minute, at the end of the script, I'll be like, well, tell me more about your property there off North Bay. I see you guys have had it listed for a little while, and blah, 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 blah. Like, give me the situation. Or you think your clients would be open to doing something a little bit more on the creative side, right? Whether they say yes or no, all we're trying to do is to keep that, whenever we were door knocking back in the day, all I would try to do is get that person to leave the door open a little bit longer. That means I'm saying something, right? That means we're connecting. That also leaves me a good chance that they're going to remember who the heck I am, because these people get called all day, every single day. I forget somebody too. If I'm just getting random calls, I won't remember it. But if I can have a meaningful conversation with somebody, they'll remember me. And when the time comes, hopefully they send us some opportunities. So that's how we reach out. Now, I personally don't make a bunch of phone calls. Instead, before I move on, does everybody kind of understand that? And would you guys want the script?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, I'm curious.
Thumbs up.
I've done some wholesaling, don't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to know of some of the objectives that I have come over, because again, this was a while ago when I was wholesaling, but the biggest thing is I always got from agents, well, what is creative? I don't understand what creative is.
Sure.
So how do you explain that? Because I know how I explain it, but I'm curious how you explain it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the initial touch is I don't like to, quote unquote, like verbally vomit on people and give them way too much information and then makes their head spin, right? You want to try to, in my opinion, just try to create like, hey, layman terms, this is basically what it is, if they would be open to it. You can say stuff like, it's a non-traditional loan assumption, right? Because basically we're going to be taking over their loans, right? And they'll understand that because they come in from the real estate world. They know loan assumptions. But what's a non-traditional loan assumption, right? You could say, well, look, creative can be many different things. At the end of the day, the only time I'm not able to buy a house is whenever we have two parties not willing to work something out with each other, right? If there's a mortgage, maybe we can come in and step in their shoes and take over those payments. If they're trying to buy something else, we can have a conversation to make sure that they can actually buy something based on their DTI. Heck, I don't know. We're early on in the conversation, but if they want to work something out and they're motivated to do something, let's have a conversation, right? So I try to keep it vague, pretty open-ended. I won't go into, well, look, we do a subject to, and we take over their payments, and we can get this removed off their DTI. We can sign a lease agreement, and then, yada, yada, yada. And, this is how they're protected because we're going to do it. We could pre-sign a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Then we have a performance clause. It's like, oh my gosh, it could be way too much. But, even from your experience probably doing it, it's like, we don't want to answer questions that haven't been asked yet, but we know we're probably going to get them later on in the conversation. But I prefer, specifically when we're doing creative, I prefer to answer those when I have the seller on the phone, right? Because if I tell it to the agent, they're probably going to go mess it up, right? And I tell them that all the time. Say, look, when it comes to this kind of information, let me be the vessel of the information. We just do this all day, every single day. I love to do this deal with you, get you paid, get your commission. And if you can let me have a conversation with your client, we can all do a three-way call together, get a meeting of the minds to see if this is even possible. And I can answer your questions and their questions all at the same time, right? So we push for that three-way call to get that deal done, specifically when it comes to that stuff. There we go. Cool. Any other questions before we move on?
We have a couple of questions from the sidebar.
Let's do it.
Nancy said, what is DTI? You just referred to DTI. Was that?
Debt to income ratio. Yep.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, so how that works is when somebody is leaving their mortgage in place and they're trying to buy another home, well, the lender is going to be like, you're not going to qualify for this. You still are liable for this $1,400 a month payment, right? So how are you going to qualify for this next one? So depending on their income level, some people can qualify for both payments, right? And that's fine. But getting that off their DTI is a big deal, and it's almost impossible to get 100% of it off in the beginning, right? But you can pre-sign lease agreements. You can have a lease with an option to purchase. It just comes down to what the loan officer would like to see, but we can work with them to make that happen.
Then, sorry,
Go ahead.
no, my question was, I'm still stuck on how do I know this is a good deal? What are you looking for to determine whether or not this is a good deal that you can move forward with?
So we don't know until they start sending us stuff, right? Once they start sending me addresses and things to look at, that's the reason why it takes 40 to 50 of them, right? Because they're going to send me some properties and they're like, hey, here's this property and what could you guys offer? And if I'm looking at it, in fact, I did a video, I'm happy to share this with you guys, but like how to quickly underwrite a deal in 2 minutes. Once they send me an opportunity, like, oh, sure, well, I have this listing off of blah, blah, blah. If it's on market and it's a nice house, it has to go creative, right? Because we are always going to be so far off their price. If we're going to do a cash deal, I mean, we're talking at least 60, 70 grand normally, right? Because if I'm going to wholesale it, then my end buyer is going to want to feel like they're getting a deal. If the property's listed for 300 and I got it for 290 and I try to sell it to him for 300, he's like, well, just buy this on market. It's been sitting on the market for 30 days, you know? So we just have to get it deeper. But it always comes down to the property when they send it over to you. We always prioritize off market because normally they've sent it to a couple people to get some ideas of prices. So we try to get offers on those faster. But if they send you something and it's on market and it's pretty, it's got to go into the creative bucket and you got to start having that conversation. Do you think they may be open to doing something a little bit more creative? Because I can pay that list price. It just has to be a little more on the creative side. So, you know, don't waste any time on leads until like they start sending you stuff and start having some preliminary conversations. Because you can easily throw out a property just by mentioning that. And they're like, no, they want to get cash only. What's your offer? It's like, okay, well, we're going to be pretty far off what you guys are looking for in the list price. How flexible are they? Because, you know, the last thing I want to do is give you guys an offer and you lump me in with all the rest of the investors that you say are low ballers. I don't want to do that, right? If they're not flexible, this probably isn't the right opportunity for me. We'll love to do something else with you in the future, right? But we at least try to be honest with the agents that we're working with if they send us something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There we go. Sweet. So I wanted to share with you guys an example of what we do for our outreach. Because outside of, like, I do have VAs calling, it all helps to get more leads. Like in the beginning at the top, it's all volume by any means. But if you're left to cold call, I know that can really burn a lot of people out. So the system that I created was for me because I'm lazy and I don't want to call anybody. So the way it starts is I'll share with you, like, here's an example of a deal that we did back at the end of April with an agent. And the reason why I'm showing you guys this one is because something that I did on live stream. I was like, hey, look how simple this could be to do a deal with an agent. And within 3 days, we did this deal. So I started with dropping this voicemail to her. You guys might can hear it.
Beard, I am just checking back in. Gosh, it has been about a month since I checked in, and I told you, hey, we're looking for more investment properties. And look, I know you probably are also getting a ton of these types of phone calls, so I just wanted to circle back around, see if you had anything coming up. And look, I also buy pretty properties. It's not just the ones that are ugly that we can fix and flip. They would just need to be on creative terms. So we're looking at buying just about anything. If you get a second, feel free to give me a call back. I'd love to touch base. Hope you're doing amazing. Talk soon.
Right. So I dropped that voicemail first, and then the system is set to 5 minutes later. You can see here at 11:25, it sent them this text. Hey, Tonya, just left you a voicemail a few minutes ago. Do you have a moment? We'll love to reconnect when you get a chance. Thanks. This is Matt, by the way, right? She didn't know who I am, and I know that. But I just want to get her to respond to me because after she responds to me, we can start having a real conversation, right? So he goes, Matt, from where? What's this about? And I said, I was just circling back. I had touched base a little over a month ago about investment properties. I know you had the one off Mandarin, right? It's nice to know that they're listing because you can mention it and you won't sound like a robot. We also buy turnkey properties like that one. It would just have to be on creative. So I wanted to circle back and see if you had anything coming up that may need some work, right? She tried calling me. We played phone tag for a minute, and then we had this 14-minute conversation. And I'm happy to share this recording with you guys too if you want to hear kind of how the conversation went. But it was very simple. We started out with like talking about, I was like, hey, looking for deals. She goes, hey, get in line. Everybody wants a good deal. I'm like, sure. Well, look, anything you send my way. She goes, well, what about Mandarin, the one that I have listed? I'm like I said, it just has to be on creative. We can try to figure something out. The lady had a 2.5% VA loan, and it cash flowed about $800 a month as a rental. And I'm like, okay, well, this might be a decent opportunity. She didn't have much. Equity, and I was like, okay, this is tailor made for a sub two, and if she's open to the conversation, let's do it. Right. It just so happened that another wholesaler guy had bought it earlier that year, sub two, and he was trying to sell it sub two, basically, because he couldn't afford the payments. So I came in and I was like, cool, well, this is what I can do. The guy's name was David. I said, David, this is what I can pay you. You guys can hear in the conversation. It was funny because in this recording, you're going to basically hear the agent yell at her client. She goes, David, ain't no way you making that much money. This is business. And from a business standpoint, you ain't getting no better offer than what he's offering you. It was hilarious. But like, that's the reason why you want agents on your side, because once they are, they will go to bat for you. So we had the conversation. We negotiated the deal. It started out with a simple voicemail and a text. And this deal was one that I wasn't going to personally hold. I assigned it for 14 grand, but it came from me dropping voicemails to the same list of people that I was just sharing with you guys, right? So in my opinion, that's why I feel like this is the easiest way to get a hold of these people. So even if you're busy, you don't have time for the outreach, because I think that's normally the bottleneck for most people trying to build their wholesale business, is like, well, who's going to do the outreach? Do I need to go hire a VA, or do I need to go do all this stuff? I mean, stuff happens, right? We gotta go visit properties. Life happens. Don't have time to sit down and make a bunch of phone calls all the time. It's nice to be able to leverage systems to be able to do the outreach for you, so then you can work the inbound leads. I used to do that as an agent. I was terrified to cold call, right? It's like, as a realtor, they're like, call FSBOs and expireds. And I'm like, instead I created this really elaborate 7-tier voicemail thing that I dropped to all my FSBOs. And that's how I went from 0 listings to 11 listings in a month, was just dropping voicemails and working inbound calls. So like, it works really well, but you just got to be able to work the system. So that's like nuts and bolts, like the easiest way. These are free leads. These people want to be called. It's completely compliant, and you can use a system to basically do the outreach. It's not AI, right? It does require me to respond to people, but like, it just gets to the good stuff faster, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
This is a great tool, man. Is this a go high level based?
Yep. Go high level based. I call it deal generator because that's just like what we call it in the mentorship. But yeah, it's high level based. So same thing. This is the same platform I can make phone calls from in here. Same place that I can make, text messages, emails, and all that good stuff. But we kind of tailored it specifically to this business model to be able to do more of the agent outreach, because like, not only do I do my outreach in here, I also like organize, and this is what I like teach people too, is like, I organize my leads on the back end into tiers. Like, hey, here's my personal agents that I've been working on. And like, okay, I got 85 tier ones. These are people that brought me opportunities and are actively bringing me deals. And this is how I manage the relationships. You know what I'm saying? So it's a nice all-in-one place where I can just like, literally everything in our business is done in here.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yep.
Go high level is a great tool, and that, as I tell people when they're first starting out, is you don't need a CRM. If the expense is gonna put you over the edge, use a Google Sheets, use an Excel spreadsheet, whatever. But as you get into it and you want to do more deals and better outreach, the little bit of money you spend for something like Go High Level, it has so many different ways to capture information, to do outreach. It's crazy.
100%.
Voicemails, the automated voicemails like you just shown, is a great tool. Cindy and I don't even utilize that very much, and we should.
Yeah. I mean, even like, I use it for many different use cases. Like, here's one where, let me see if I can pull up Brett. Here's that foreclosure that I just went to, and it came from me dropping him a voicemail. So if I go to the top of this conversation, I dropped him a voicemail. And then what was it, like 5 days later, it sent him another one, then a follow-up text. Hey, was just checking back. This is Matt, by the way. Again, this person's in foreclosure. He then started sending me a bunch of photos, and I went over to his house. He told me about it. I got on the phone with him. I did an appointment, and I'm pushing this over as a listing. It's a really nice property. It doesn't need any work. My listing agent that I'm referring to is going to give me 50% of the commission. This is a $950,000 house. So I'm going to make $14,200 on the commission for me just passing this off to somebody as a listing. That came from me from dropping voicemails, right? So again, as an investor, not everything's a wholesale. Not everything's a fix and flip. Not everything's a buy and hold. Again, we have a deal finding business here, and it's our job as investors to figure out what's the best way to make money on this opportunity. So high level is really cool because you can customize it. You can start from scratch. I know they have different levels of subscriptions. We just have ours basically built out to do real estate wholesaling, so that's the move. And I was looking at the chat. It seems like you're quite the high level expert over here.
Do we have Go High Level? We have a version of it. I think there's some other people that use it. Sharon, do you have a Go High Level account? Is that what I'm seeing there?
Nope, I have all-in-one marketing had a free deal that I'm trying to work out.
All right. This
Nice.
is I'm not familiar with that one. Now,
Yeah.
Matt, you do sell your version of Go High Level, correct? Your CRM here.
Yeah, we do. It's just called nofluffdealgenerator.com. But yeah, we do have the system for it.
I'm gonna drop that in the side chat.
There we go. So we've gone over the easiest way to find a deal because what happens is as you guys go and do this, you guys saw my tier ones. I have basically 85 deal finders that are doing the work of like, again, 85 people. If I'm keeping the relationship strong, once you build that bucket up strong enough, if, you know, like I said, if each one of those people in my tier ones brought me 4 deals a year, and that's even undershooting it, that's over 200 deals a year from my tier ones once you build up that bucket, right? So it makes so much sense. If we're building our business, say, hey, I want to be in real estate in the next 6 months. I want to be in real estate in the next 6 years. I want to be doing real estate for the rest of my life. Then it just makes sense to build up a big system where you're having people bring you deals, right? You look at agents who've been doing it for so long. How many of them are doing outreach? Not many. Most of them are just working their referral buckets, their sphere of influence. They have previous clients. They have people they've done deals with over the years. So that's kind of the way that we do it. So we've gone over the best way to find deals. We've gone over the best way to reach out, and we've gone over the best way to structure your deals. Okay. Good rule of thumb is regardless of what you're getting into, cash or creative, and I have a flow chart for this. So if I'm going into structuring deals, if it's cash or creative, this is how I know if I have a good deal. Let's start with the creative. All right. So if it's a creative deal, this deal, number one, most importantly, it needs to cash flow as an LTR. Okay. If it cash flows as a long-term rental, then you have a really good shot at selling the deal. If it only works if you Airbnb the property, it's not near as good of a deal. Okay. If it only works if you have to do a wraparound mortgage, it's not near as good of a deal. If it at least cash flows as a long-term rental, there's a good chance that you can do other stuff with that property, right? Because you got to think, when someone buys a creative deal, they're not buying it to move into the property. It's a little business, right? That little single family home is a business and it needs to make money. And if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. But assuming that it cash flows as a long-term rental and you're not having to go sell it to niche buyers, then your next step is you want your entry fee, okay, to be between 5 to 7%. And what I mean by that, entry fee is the cash to seller, because these are typically properties that are move-in ready. Let me write seller one more time because that looks terrible. But cash to seller is one of those. So the money that we have to come to the table and pay the seller, okay? We also take into account the cash to agent because we got an agent involved. So we need to help contribute to their commissions. Not say we got to pay them all their commission or all 3%, but we're going to need to contribute to that, okay? Sometimes, depending, okay? And then, obviously if there's arrears, right? If there's anything that we need to pay to get the loan current. I don't include closing costs into our entry fee, by the way. It's just 5 to 7%. So like, for example, if we have a house, okay, and the asking price, the AP is $300,000, okay, and the mortgage, all right, is, let's just call it, $270,000, right? I look at it and I say, all right, well, if they're looking to get $300,000 for this house and they owe $270,000, if they were going to get $300,000, they would have probably already got it. It's sitting on market for $300,000, so they're probably not even going to sell it for that. But even if they did, they would have to pay buyer's agent commission, selling agent commission, closing costs. That's like 7%, right? So if you multiply this by 0.93, it minuses out the 7%. I mean, you're left with, what is that, 279? Right around 279K. So like they barely are going to walk away with any money after paying costs to sell the house. So I know that going into it. So I'm like, look, they're probably happy to get whatever they can get because it's not even selling for $300,000. They'd probably be stoked to have $2,000, $3,000, right? So I keep that in the back of my mind because my entry fee needs to be 5 to 7% of this number. Okay. Maximum. So I want to be probably in this house no more than $15,000 tops. That includes the cash that I paid the seller. That includes the cash that I pay the agent. So if I take in this account, then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I could probably give the seller, I mean, the agent 3% is like $9,000, right? But I could probably still give the seller, I don't know, like $6,000 on top of that, but I'll start lower because they're going to negotiate for sure. But maybe I say, hey, I'll give your seller $3,000 and I'll pay your $9,000 commission and I'll cover closing costs, right? That's how I would structure a creative deal, assuming that it cash flows as a long-term rental, right? If I do that, I know I can typically wholesale this deal, right? I have buyers, right? Buyers will pay anywhere from 10 to 15% depending on cash flow, right? Depending on how well the deal cash flows. If it's a cash flow monster, like the deal I had in Atlanta, $800 a month is pretty good as a long-term rental. I actually got closer to this 15% mark, right? But if I have it structured where I'm all in at 12, I know I could probably sell this deal for like $30,000 as an entry fee. And that's how you make $18,000 on the deal, right? You have it for 12, you sell it to somebody for 30. So it all comes down with how well you structure the upfront deal. And this is tough to do because getting a deal that cash flows as a long-term rental and staying at 5 to 7% entry is pretty tough, right? It's the reason why most deals don't work out, especially on creative, but we don't want to take over bad mortgages. I've done plenty of those and lost a bunch of money. So yeah, we don't want to do that. So that's how we look at our creative deals that we can wholesale. And that's how you structure them. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Cool. And then on the cash side, right? So let's just say here, let's do cash deals. I will say this is largely dependent on your market. All right. So in general, Florida, Atlanta, we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 cents on the dollar, maybe 60 cents on the dollar. Okay. So that basically means, if a house is somewhere in the neighborhood of, their ARV. So a new thing on this one is after repair value. What is it worth after it's fixed up? Okay, so in order for me to determine this, I like to see the house that they sent over to me, and I try to find homes in that area that have been renovated, okay, that they're 2024, not dated. If I see homes in the area that have sold as is and didn't have much updates, I don't use those. I need to find one it looks like somebody flipped it, okay? I'll even go back in time a little bit if I need to, 3 months, 6 months ago, 9 months ago. When was someone in the area actually flipped a property, okay? And that's what I kind of base my ARV off of. But in this example, let's just say the ARV is, for easy math again, let's say at $300,000 after we fix it up. Well, then I know just rather quickly that my offer at, either 0.55 to 0.6 is going to equal, maximum $180,000, right? $180,000 depending on, this is our price, depending on the amount of renovations. So if you guys want the quick way to do your numbers, I'll just write it down here for you. So the way you figure out your wholesale price, right? So let me do wholesale equation, all right? To make sure you never pay too much for a house, what I like to do is I like to start with ARV, which in this example was $300,000. And we're going to start by multiplying this by 0.93, right? Because we got to subtract out what they'd actually sell what would they actually make if they sold the home, okay? So let's go ahead and do that real fast. Pull out my calculator, all right? And 300K times 0.93. All right, so we are down to 279 right there. All right, so again, this is a cost to sell. All right, next thing that I'm gonna do is I am going to basically subtract out flipper profit. Your flipper is going to want to make at least 10 to 12% of the sale price over here. They want to make at least 10 to 12% if they're going to be taking the risk and flipping the property. So let's just take the high end and let's say they want to make at least $36,000, right? 12%. So let's subtract out flipper profit of $36,000. Okay. So this is flipper profit.
That's what I've been doing wrong, man. I always took that minus sign. We're supposed to be making negative cash flow in all of our fix and flips.
Go figure. No, so you're left with $243,000. Now, this is probably the biggest number that most people don't look at, and this is where I kind of lose people, but you want to make sure you calculate in holding cost, okay? So if someone's doing a flip, all right? So if someone's doing a flip, and let's just say that this property needs a cosmetic rehab, right? And I'll write down here cosmetic, you're going to be paying somewhere in the neighborhood of about $25 per square foot. Okay. And I would just say like a moderate flip with, having some higher ticket items that we need to replace. Like we're spending some money in the kitchen, spending some money in the bathrooms. Then you're probably going to be looking closer to right around $35 to $40 a square foot. Okay. And if you're going to be doing a gut remodel, like everything, you're going to be closer to right around $55 to $60, depending per square foot. Things to take note of: does it have a pool that needs to be resurfaced, et cetera, et cetera. But let's just say for this example, this was our little house up here with the ARV's 300. Let's just say this is I don't know, let's call it 1,500 square feet. Okay, 3-bed, 2-bath. And let's just say it needed a cosmetic remodel. So 1,500 square feet times $25, that's about $37,500. Okay, well, what you need to take into account for is the person that's doing the flip. $37,500 means it's going to be about 37 days to do this project. I calculate for about $1,000 a day, right? Some people do about $10,000 a week, but somewhere in between, right? So I would say this project's going to take at least a month to do, right? Maybe a little bit longer. So from the time the flipper buys the property, finishes the rehab, and then lists the property again, the next thing I got to look for is like, okay, what's the average days on market for this area? Okay, nice properties in this area move in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 40. Yeah, there you go. Whatever that is, I take that in consideration. So for this example, let's just say from the time they buy it, it takes them a month or 40 days to do the rehab, right? And then it takes them a month to sell it, and then they are a month in escrow. They're going to be making that hard money payment they used to buy the house about 4 times, right? So that needs to be taken into account when you do your numbers. So your end buyer, your flipper's going to have to pay it. It's almost just like another cost to fix the house. So the way that you figure this out is normally right now, hard money loans. What's a good hard money interest right now, Shane?
Boy, it seems like we're picking in rate at 10 and some change.
Okay.
So for a fix and flip loan, I think we're doing like 10 and a half.
Okay. Well, let's go a little bit higher just to be conservative for the normal folks. I'd probably say 10 and a half. I agree. Somewhere like 12%. I saw 12. Some people are doing even up to 15. It's crazy. But let's do 12 just to be conservative here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this by 12%. So 243 times 0.12. That means on an annualized basis, okay, this person is going to pay $29,160 for 12 months. But we just said we know they're going to make this payment about 4 times, right? So what you could do this a couple different ways, but I typically just like dividing it by 12 to figure out what my monthly cost is. And then I know I'm going to have it for 4 months, so I multiply that by 4. So to have this for 4 months, okay, my holding cost just in interest on the money that I'm borrowing is about $9,720 for 4 months, right? And this is where a lot of wholesalers miss it, because that $10,000 you're about to make on your assignment, you forgot that it's going to be about $10,000 in holding costs, right? So you don't get the assignment. So if we go back to our number up here, we're now going to take our 243 and subtract it from our 9720. So let's do that. 243 minus 9,720. So this leaves us with a new number, okay, of 233,280. All right. After holding costs, right? So now we're going to subtract out the money it's going to cost to do the project, because I lump it all in together. Basically, that 243 is the money they're going to use to purchase the home plus the money they're going to use to renovate together, 12%. So I'm going to subtract out the renovation cost, which we said was going to be $37,500. Okay. So let's subtract out 37,500. Okay. And that leaves us with, let's go 280, 37,500. That leaves us with 195,780. Okay. And this is reno. The last thing you got to do is subtract out your wholesale fee, right? So 195,780. Let's just say you want to make 15 grand to be conservative, so you have some wiggle room in there. If you had to go up and say, look, I'll take 10 or I'll take 8, we project out and say, let's try to make at least 15. Look what we're left with, right? This is wholesale fee. We're left with $180,780. So roughly $180,000 would be your offer. Does that make sense? So,
Question, Matt, on your rehab numbers,
mhm.
do you see those changing much based on your market? I mean, is that true for Phoenix versus Tampa versus Dallas?
I would say in the appreciating markets that we're in is pretty standard. It depends on the finishings, right, and the type of
Yeah.
property we're flipping, right. If I'm flipping in Indiana, I'm definitely not spending that much money on a house, right. I'm going laminate on the countertops. I'm going some cheaper materials just because that's just what the rest of the neighborhood has. But like the more you get into wholesaling, and you know this, Shane, the more that I can price out materials, the better my numbers are going to be, right?
Right.
If I can price out, I know how much that kitchen's going to cost, and I know how much carpet's going to be because I got a guy. I know how much flooring is going to be because like I see like Home Depot has like 89 cents a square foot for these tile. It's like the better you're going to have these numbers to be able to hammer home. But like, for example, I literally just did a deal in this price point. I projected to spend 35 grand. I ended up spending 33,900, right? So just kind of stays, this is a good just rule of thumb. Now, as you negotiate deals, if you're really close, you got somebody who's like, look, they want 190, they're not going to budge. Okay, is it possible to massage these numbers a little bit? Is there going to be someone who's willing to do this? Maybe the home is super clean and it doesn't need $37,000. Maybe $20,000 will go a long way, right? But this is how you can be conservative. And just like I was sharing up here, it just so happened that this 0.6, 60 cents on the dollar, ended up being basically what our wholesale fee was going to be for a cosmetic remodel, right? So there you go. Cool. That's
in
it.
this group, man, we have quite a few green ladies. I don't know if you're familiar with green. Green is the Women's Real Estate Investment Network.
Okay,
I
nice.
think I get that right. A lot of them are drilled with the 70-cent deal. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Is if you're not 0.7% of or 70% of the ARV minus repairs, if you're above that, stop. You go back to the negotiating table.
Right.
And you can see why.
Right.
All these things will chisel away. So if you think it's a good deal and you're at 75, time you get to the end, you're not going to have any profit. It's going to be chewed up.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
And it's just tough to do that. So, it's funny because I'm sure everybody gets those deals in their email inbox where someone's like, hot deal in whatever area, and it goes ARV 250, asking price 190. It's like, who's buying these? It's like there's no way. But yeah, you got to be pretty low, especially right now because a lot of buyers are a little bit more spooked. They're being very conservative, not knowing what's going to happen this year, especially with November rolling around. Who knows, right? So there's a lot of folks just kind of sitting on the sideline. But what's happening on the retail market is there are still people buying. There is a lot of folks that are waiting for that interest rate to drop. But it's on that same token, there's not a ton of inventory in some of like the Southwest that we're in. But people who are buying right now know that they're probably going to be getting a good deal because as soon as interest rates drop, they're going to take advantage of some appreciation. There you go. Cool. Let's answer some questions.
It's real simple to be able to walk through those numbers like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's the way to do it. Let's answer Danielle. Let's answer your question. Got your hand raised.
Grab you, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm coming out of Baltimore, Maryland, and the question that I have is I'm lost where you got the cost for the Reno, the 37.5.
Yep. So how did we get that?
Yes.
Okay, so all I did was I multiplied. I said, hey, this is going to be a cosmetic remodel.
Right.
So I multiplied $25 times our square footage, which was 1,500.
15. Okay, got it. All
Yep.
right, thank you.
You got it, for sure. And like I said, like the more that you do it and be able to price out some of the material, in some neighborhoods you won't need to go, the Calcutta quartz or go crazy on the cabinets and, higher end on the finishings and the molding and all that stuff. Like you can just get away with some Home Depot vanities and some stuff like that, and that's the $180K to $200K price point. That's what you want to do. Your material cost is way less for sure on those types of deals. So definitely something to kind of take into consideration. So as long as, I said like, hey, this is the easiest way to structure deals or the best way to structure deals. We want to be able to do both because you guys can see that we can clearly wholesale the creative deals and we can clearly wholesale the cash deals. They just have to be deep enough. And if you do this, you won't have any problem finding the buyers. And all y'all probably know is like, look, I don't have a massive buyers list. I have like 3 or 4 people that then know everybody else. I don't spend a bunch of time reaching out and finding in buyers, with platforms like Investor Lift and all these other Facebook groups. If you got a good deal, it will sell always. And what I personally do is with my handful of folks that I know can sell my deals, I check in with them and say, hey, I got this deal. I can get it for 180. Do you think you can sell it? And they'd be like, sure, yeah. If you can get it for that price, I think I could probably sell it for like 199. I'd be like, great, I'll sell it to you for 195, and just kind of let them, if they sell it for more than 199, that's theirs. I made my 15 grand. We'll keep it moving, So like, in my opinion, that's how you move a whole lot faster in the wholesale world. Not spending a bunch of time trying to find buyers, rather have a couple relationships that have all of them, and I still do that nationwide to this day. So that's kind of how we approach it, and how we structure the deals, how we find them with agents, how we put them together. The paperwork side's pretty simple. If the agents want to fill out their own contract, we let them know, like, look, I'm not licensed, so if you want to use the state approved form, you're going to need to fill this out. Sometimes they don't care, sometimes they do. Obviously, with creative deals, we try to use our own contracts because there's a lot of gray area when it comes to using traditional forms. So, especially with subject to. But yeah, not to get too complicated, that's how we do it. What kind of questions do we have, guys? Was this been pretty valuable as far as building a wholesale business?
It was awesome.
Sweet.
So when you wholesale this deal out, you kept your 15 grand. Your person that you're wholesaling it to, they're going to go out and wholesale it. They're going to add their fee onto it. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. So, again, very seldom, like, he would let me know if he's like, hey, letting you know, like, I got this thing sold for 230, and if he knows I'm making 195 and he's getting significantly more than me, then he would let me know. And we probably just go 50-50 or something, But for the most part, I kind of state my price. I know that he's going to make 5-10 grand on the deal and just keep it going, because he's got.
That's the power of having that dispo team of yours small, right?
Yeah.
Same guys, you know them, they know you, you got a good relationship.
Right. And that's their entire business model, is they're okay with making the 5 grand, but they've been doing this for a very long time, and they got relationships. They got, end buyers on their list. They got people who will, buy 2 flips a year and go do their own sweat equity and go do all the work themselves. And there's people who are willing to pay a premium. And I'd rather work with somebody who has that person rather than try to do it all myself. And, probably still sell. If I try to do the deal myself, I may only sell it for 190. Where this person's got somebody willing to pay 205. Let's do it, So it just makes sense,
I'm going to rewind the clock 1 hour. Back in time.
Yeah.
And Matt says, you know what? There's a million ways to make $1 million in this business. And he just brought up a really cool idea, which I never thought of, but here it is you can just go out and talk to people and say, are you a buyer? Yes. What are you buying and where are you buying it? Mm-hmm. And then we'll find people like Matt and bridge that gap and make 5 grand. And all you're doing is pass the deals that Matt's vetted onto your buyers.
Yep.
Connector.
Yep.
Yeah.
Co-wholesaling is a big thing, So, with that, with folks that's their primary business model, God bless them. That's just not for me. But it's a great way to make money, for sure. Everybody's finding their niche. Cool. What kind of questions we got? Let's do it.
So how are you figuring repairs on virtual wholesale?
The great part about working with agents is typically they got a bunch of pictures, and they also get their clients to sign seller property disclosure statements. So their seller has to disclose their properties typically if they're going to be represented by an agent. So we have a pretty good idea of the condition of the property when it needs a bunch of work. If I need someone to go out and walk the property, then I pay like a bird dog fee or just pay someone to go walk it for me. But we do our numbers on the pretty conservative side. Like, if I know it's a cosmetic remodel, I may still bank on maybe $35 a square foot, right? I may still try to go closer to 40, just so if I'm surprised and there's a little gap between where I need to be and what they're trying to offer, then yeah, maybe I can make an adjustment based on the condition of the property and the photos they sent. We still always have an inspection period on our deals, right? So if I get the property at 180 and I go and I check out the property and it looks like it's a gut, it's not near the condition they sent me the photos on, then we're going to be doing a price reduction, right? We had to do a price reduction on the property here in Phoenix the other day. In fact, it's kind of just a part of our process. They know you're going to be asking for some sort of discount, right? Whether that be the sellers to fix something or to do something at the house. So typically, we ask for a 5K price reduction or a 10K price reduction. We had to do one here locally in Mesa before I bought it as one of my flips. I had to get a 20K price reduction because after our inspection, I had someone go in and they checked the plumbing, and the plumbing was original and the house was like built in like the 50s. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably gonna need to replace all that. So I'm gonna need to get a price reduction. And it's always justified. I'm not just dropping them to drop them, but we can do that during our inspection period for sure.
If you're doing it through the realtor, are you taking the property, or is it just an assignment contract at that point when you already have, because you're talking about co-wholesaling, you have someone that can, you're just gonna get your fee and they can get probably more for it, right? We were talking about that. So what's that paperwork look like? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, so typically the agent signs, so it depends on the relationship they have with the agent. Sometimes it's a wholesaler bringing me the deal, and basically it's like a daisy chain, right? They assign the contract over to me and I assign it to someone else. But for the most part, the agents that we work with, because they're working with individuals, they have a client that brought them this deal and they don't want to bring it to market, they have an exclusive rights on that property that they're going to get paid X amount of money. Now, whatever that the client agreed to pay them, typically is 3%. Sometimes they cut their, because like if we're negotiating, we need to be at 180, and that doesn't include the agent getting their commission. Sometimes the agents take a discount just to try to get the deal done for their client, right? But typically that's done between them two. Sometimes every now and then it's an assignment. I personally don't like working with wholesaler agents because they've blasted it out to many people. They ask for non-refundable earnest money. And I know if I'm getting the deal, that probably means I'm the highest bidder, and I don't like to be the highest bidder ever. I won't be able to sell it. So typically I just like working with agents that are representing their clients.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Cool. Any more questions, y'all? Let's go. Shane, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
It's been awesome. So we have a great community.
I've got a question.
Let's do it.
So we have a lot of ladies here, so if they want to be a part of, is it a coaching program or your team? Can you tell me just about that?
Yeah, so we do all kind of stuff, just like what you guys have going on in here. I do coaching calls on Saturdays. They're all free. I call them our master classes. I talk about all sorts of stuff. If you guys ever want to go back and watch any of our previous recordings and whatnot, you can go to, I'll write it down right here. It's just free stuff. You can go to noflufflive.com/masterclasspass. Right? So if you go there, you'll get a login. I basically take all my Saturday trainings and I put the recordings in there and like all the resources. So you'll find scripts, recordings, all kind of stuff. I'm a big believer in like information should be free. We do have a mentorship coaching program where I work with people like hands-on. Like my thing is helping people build wholesale businesses. Like that's my niche, right? If you come in and like, hey, I want to do a bunch of pad splits. I'm like, I can show you how to buy properties, but I'm more going to teach you how to build a deal finding business. I will teach you how to scale your wholesale business. So I do have that one-on-one. And in fact, I think Jeremy's in here. He literally just joined today, which is crazy. I didn't even know he was going to be in here. So we do have a coaching program for that where we kind of work with people one-on-one for sure.
Yeah, let's talk, man, because I think that's one of the things that our business, Cindy and our business, really needs to excel at that. We used to do some lead generation on our own. Then as the community grew, we kind of stopped our own and relied on the community to bring them to us. But that's not consistent. So I think we need to go back to being lead generators ourselves, buy all that we want, turn the rest over to the community, and add value back that way.
Oh yeah.
The scale of business.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. Like it's so much fun. Like I guess the benefit I didn't even think about when I first started this like a year and a half ago was like how many cool deals you end up getting to do with like students and people in the community. Like the hotel deal we're doing in Florida from one of my students. I got a beach house in Panama City Beach that I bought on Creative. It was $1 million house. The guy owed $900,000. We gave him $25,000 and he walked. And the interest rate's like 2.5% on his VA loan. And it's a beach house, literally the closest house to the beach on the strip at Panama City Beach. And like the numbers on it are crazy, right? But I never would have found that one if I didn't do it with the community, if I didn't do it with one of my students. So like it's fun because they were literally selling makeup 3 months prior. And then I funded the deal and we bought it together and now we own a beach house. So it's like, you never know what's going to happen. And that's like, we're in it to do deals. Like I'm not in it to sell courses or videos to watch and crap like that. It's like, most of the time when I work with people, they already understand real estate. They get it. They just need help with implementation. They need help with the day-to-day stuff.
We should do a mastermind in Panama City Beach, because Shane and I own a very large STR in Panama City Beach too.
Let's go. That would be great. I'd be down.
Creator coaching group, and we'll bring our creative group, and we'll have a massive mastermind.
That would be so much fun. We gotta, let me see. I'll get the address. You guys can check it out. It's pretty.
Shane knows what our address is. I don't even know.
I can pull it up.
Ours is a big house too. I don't know if yours is a big house, but ours is a very big house.
I
We
think
own that stuff too.
I think mine is decent size. Let's see. Here's this group chat.
Ours has
I put it on Zillow.
kitchen.
But like, this was a creative deal.
Yeah.
You know, I thought was it like 2,700 square feet. But yeah, it's, you know, the guy had it for sale for a little bit. The agent had it listed for, you could probably look at the listing description back then. It was listed for, $1 million. Yeah. It was listed for $1 million when we got it under contract, and it sold for $922. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh man, you can't be far from us.
Probably not.
Not far at all.
We'll have to make a connection. Get down there, everybody. I'd be so down. I live in Arizona. It's too dang hot. We don't have any beach.
Yeah, I'm with you. My friend ended in Arizona too. I'm probably skipping a jump from you.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, this has been a ton of fun. If there's anything I can help with you guys, obviously feel free to reach out to Shane. Shane knows how to get a hold of me. I love, like, if there's any value I can give to your group, Shane, anything on this stuff, I'm more than happy to do coaching or calls whenever you need me. I'm totally down.
Maybe one of these days we'll come back and do another round of the next level. You know, the deal that you found in Roy City.
Yeah.
I was on that show when you found that. I found another one in Forney.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, how did Matt do that again? He wrapped this somehow, I think. Did you end up moving that deal?
Yeah, we moved it. We didn't make much money on it. We made $5,000, but it was better. It was better than no grand, you know?
Right. So, yeah, I got one I'd like to run by and see if there's a way that we can turn it into a deal or not.
I guarantee.
To me, but,
Yeah, I guarantee there is.
oh, it looks like your battery's getting low.
Yeah, we're getting there. All right, you guys.
Hey, man, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Not anymore.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. I know the ladies on here. I know they're thanking me for bringing you on.
Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate you so much. I know it's getting late on the East Coast, so if you're on the East Coast, you're still learning about real estate at 9:30 at night, kudos to you. And thank you all for hanging out on a Wednesday afternoon. I really appreciate it.